I have already published this story to my channel several months ago. However, there have been recent updates that may be of interest to you. I will include the timestamp in the description so that you can pass over the outdated information. My entitled sisters requested that I allow them to rent out my vacation cabin for profit. Their spouses entered the premises after I declined, and they are currently being prosecuted. Occurred today. My parents elected to organize a barbecue, as it appears that this is a custom among the elderly. I declined because I have a strong aversion to my two sisters, their spouses, and their children. My wife and I are childless. The wife was subsequently subjected to duress by her mother. In summary, we proceeded. By the time we arrived, there were approximately 20 individuals present. My sisters and their spouses were already thoroughly inebriated. I am actually inebriated. My mother was dedicating her entire time to the task of maintaining the nieces and nephews, who were between the ages of 7 and 11, in a state of relative order. My father had strategically withdrawn to the hot tub area section of the swimming pool, where he had a small cooler containing a number of brews. My wife and I engaged in casual conversation with a variety of individuals, consumed refreshments, and sipped on a chilled margarita. The sisters alternated in their criticism of us for being tardy, not wearing swimsuits, and disrupting the atmosphere. Regardless, a typical summer gathering in the suburbs. Approximately 45 minutes into the event, two of the children pursued a neighboring visitor who was standing near the swimming pool and shoved her into the water. She was at the swimming pool steps when she staggered in, but she did not collapse, resulting in only a partial wetness. It was evident that she was exceedingly dissatisfied with the situation. However, she refrained from disrupting the situation. Rather, she proceeded to the parents' quarters, retrieved their towels, dried herself off, and departed. The sisters and Bills found the entire situation to be quite amusing. A short time later, I was conversing with an individual who was situated a few feet away from the swimming pool. From the corner of my eye, I observed three of the children sprinting at full speed toward me. Undoubtedly, I was the next to be targeted. I did not find it particularly challenging to outsmart young children. Rather, I abruptly retreated from their path. At maximum pace, all three individuals plunged directly into the swimming pool. The majority of the other guests, including my wife and me, began to chuckle. However, their mothers, who were, as I previously mentioned, quite embarrassed, were completely taken aback. It appears that two of them were unable to swim, despite the fact that they were wearing swimwear. I retreated from the swimming pool and allowed others to retrieve the children, as I was not wearing swimwear. The children were weeping uncontrollably as if they had suffered a severed limb. At that juncture, chaos ensued. The four inebriated parents were shouting at everyone, including me, for nearly allowing their children to perish. Additionally, two of the children had been filming the performance using their parents' iPhones, which were now submerged in the swimming pool. One of my Bills was entangled in the swimming pool in an attempt to retrieve the phones. However, his BMI and BAC rendered this impossible. It was unsurprising that no one else offered to assist, as my sisters continued to complain about everyone. I informed my sisters that it was their responsibility to supervise their children, and that in the event of an incident, it would have been their responsibility, not mine. Both parties employed some rather forceful language. After the other Bill fell over and face-planted, while shouting at us, my wife and I departed. They are now claiming that I should have allowed the small children to push me into the swimming pool, causing damage to my phone and allowing them to have a good time. Therefore, Ida, Dad, of course, never emerged from the vortex. Comments that are pertinent, out-of-the-box perspectives. I acknowledge that they are merely children and were simply enjoying themselves. The fact that they believed this was acceptable is a more accurate reflection of their parents than of themselves. I only regret that we did not attend. It is pleasant to visit my parents and their neighbors. However, I have a profound dislike for my sisters and their spouses. They do not conceal their resentment of us, and they are simply exhausting to be around. Additional information regarding the reasons for OOP's lack of concern for certain members of his family. It is more akin to an oil and water situation. I have never been particularly close to my sisters, who are 8 and 10 years older than I am. Additionally, I share little in common with their spouses. They are acceptable individuals. However, I am indifferent to their concerns, and the same is true for them. I am aware that the four of them are somewhat envy of our lifestyle. Both sisters are mothers who remain at cabin. Although one of the spouses earns significantly more than I do, my wife and I both have professional careers, are financially irresponsible, and do not have children. Consequently, we have a significantly greater number of investments, etc. And we are not required to drive vehicles that are cluttered with the detritus of children, and we are able to enjoy enjoyable excursions on an annual or biannual basis. It is undoubtedly a source of irritation for both sisters, and by extension, their spouses. Therefore, we are subjected to regular instances of their impolite behavior. In general, my wife and I do not find their company to be enjoyable, which is why I intended to forego the gathering. I simply do not find it to be worthwhile. However, my wife is generally pleased to see them, as she is a positive individual. It is my sincere hope that your wife will not feel compelled to attend the next time. That is likely the sole positive outcome of this situation. My wife is considerably more compassionate and tolerant of my siblings than I am. However, I suspect that she has reached her limit with them, as evidenced by her remarks on the way cabin. Your father appears to be an exceptional individual. Indeed, my father is exceedingly relaxed. He has a fondness for socializing with others, has a background in sales, and is currently relishing his retirement. He and two other individuals remain seated and observe the program. Similarly, my mother is composed. However, she was distressed by the circumstances. Are the children doing well? The children are in good health. They were observing television when I departed. I believe the numbers are 7, 9, 10, 10, and 11. The middle three were the ones who engaged in kamikaze with me. I anticipate that the 11-year-old encouraged them, as she is typically the leader of the group. The section regarding your parents' barbecue was phrased in an unconventional manner. In order to adhere to the character limited, I was obliged to condense the post. My parents are gregarious and enjoy entertaining guests. They possess the traditional cabin that is ideal for entertaining and are consistently devising an excuse to convene. They had intended for all guests to attend their parents' place on July 4th. However, one of my sisters and her family were on vacation. Consequently, they organized a simulated 4th of July celebration, which included flags, red, white, and blue decorations, a barbecue, and a margarita machine. The children were assured sparklers. The only children present were my nieces and nephews. All of the neighbors are older than my parents. The a-hole is not voted for, but the out-of-pocket. Post update, March 10, 2024, nearly 1 month later. Initially, my relatives informed me that my nieces and nephews are proficient swimmers and frequently utilize the swimming pool. Although the 7-year-old is still a novice, he has a deep affection for the water. My sister has just informed me that they are unable to swim, which would make me appear unprofessional. To be fair, none of the children are permitted to enter the deep end, which is where they fell. The two 10-year-olds and the 9-year-old attempted to force me into the swimming pool. The celebration ended on a rather negative note after we departed. My inebriated brother-in-law, who was screaming at me and face-planted, was required to visit an urgent care facility to have his face stitched. Dad escorted him because he was too inebriated to operate a vehicle. Dad was exceedingly unhappy with this development. My sisters initiated a group text late that evening and uttered some extremely offensive language. Additionally, their spouses contributed a few remarks. The four of them were obstructed by my wife and me. I received a phone call from my mother, who was quite distraught about the information that was shared during the conversation. She and her father were present, and I cannot fault her for her emotions. As a result of the text, my parents insisted that my sisters, Bills, and I visit the following day, Sunday, without their children, in order to establish some ground rules and resolve some issues as per my mother's language. The siblings issued a contrite, albeit unenthusiastic apology via my mother's phone. I was relieved that my wife was present when they called. Her harsh gaze prevented me from expressing my thoughts. I simply expressed my gratitude and stated that we did not feel the necessity of further discussion. I unblocked them because I believed that the situation had been resolved. I received a text message from one of the invoices that evening informing me that the phones were priced at $499 and inquiring as to when I would be able to pay for them. What the heck? I did not respond, but I did take a screenshot of his text and relate it to my family. I informed them that we were done with this farce and that we would no longer be in contact with their sisters or spouses. Additionally, we requested that they refrain from inviting us to any future holidays or gatherings if they would be in attendance. Subsequently, I blocked the sisters and their spouses once more. That was the moment when the excrement really struck the fan. Dad summoned them and delivered them a rude awakening. He informed them, among other things, that the grandchildren were not permitted to remain at his parents' place indefinitely. They were quite alarmed by this, as my mother frequently offers complimentary childcare. Additionally, he prohibited them from utilizing the mountain cabin and informed them that my wife and I are the true owners, not his mother and him. This was a complete shock to them, as both of my sister's families frequently utilize the location for weekend getaways with their friends. This was a significant departure from the norm for my parents. It was evident that they had reached their limit. Additionally, I did not wish for my sisters to be aware that we owned the cabin. We acquired it from my parents, who have always desired a mountain parents' place. The sole purpose of maintaining confidentiality regarding ownership was to prevent any potential conflicts with my siblings. A few days later, my sisters and their spouses unexpectedly visited our parents' place to offer their apologies in person. They left a note while we were out to dinner. However, I also received a call from one of my sisters at work, and I directed her to voicemail. For the past 3 weeks, we have refrained from engaging with them and have resolved to maintain a lack of communication indefinitely. In my opinion, they are finished. They may proceed to pound sand, comments that are pertinent, life as it has been. Although it has been less than a month, I must admit that the act of blocking them has significantly improved the tranquility of our lives. I was unaware of the extent to which they generate continuous low-level drama. It is not noxious, and they are not unsavory individuals. They are simply tedious and trivial. Additionally, I have no objection to their utilization of the weekend location. We technically own it, however we acquired it from my parents. They are responsible for its operation and determine who may utilize it when they are unavailable. We are responsible for all associated expenses and taxes. One positive outcome of this incident is that we now have a clear understanding of the cabin's future use as my parents age. I was prepared to assume responsibility for its management, including scheduling, weekends, and ensuring its upkeep. However, we have since determined that we will sell it and rent an Airbnb when we wish to visit the hills. Sorry, folks, I am aware that my parents are not naive. However, they are quite relaxed and prefer to live in a laissez-faire manner. I anticipate that they will soon relent on this matter. However, that is entirely their prerogative. We will continue to refrain from attending any family events for the foreseeable future. My sisters are likely to be extremely concerned that I will prevent them from using the cabin. However, I will not do so. That responsibility will be left to my parents until they are older. Additionally, it terminates one of the sisters' aspirations to construct a compound of residences upon our inheritance of the cabin, a matter that I had been aware of for some time but had neglected. Typically, the lots in that area only have one area that can be constructed on. However, this particular cabin is significantly larger due to its location at the end of a road. The land has the potential to accommodate at least 3 residences with breathtaking vistas. No, they are not authentically regretful. They are merely seeking something from you. I wholeheartedly concur. Their apologies are not genuine. Additionally, I have no intention of engaging with them in the near future. In regards to their utilization of the vacation cabin, it is ultimately my parents' decision. Yes, technically I am the owner and am responsible for all expenses. However, I purchased it for them and granted them daily management. They are kind individuals who have always desired a family retreat. However, they were incapable of purchasing it independently. I was able to purchase it for them because I have been financially fortunate, save and invest like a demon. Additionally, I received a substantial bonus the same year that I sold my cabin and moved in with my current wife. I am not concerned with my parents allowing my siblings to use the main house. However, I must confess that I am relishing my sister's distress at discovering that I could afford to purchase the cabin and allow my parents to use it without informing them. Dad altered the security code when they were installed last week, and as a result, it is now only accessible to him, my mother, my wife, and me. She informs me that she and occasionally her father have been visiting each sister's cabin to spend the day with the children, in addition to minding them. She intends to retrieve each set from school on a separate day each week when school commences, transport them to her parents' place, and spend the evening with them. She claims that the five of them collectively cause her anxiety, but individually they are satisfactory. Mom and Dad have both informed me that they do not anticipate my sisters and their families returning to their parents' place in the near future, and that they are relishing the tranquility now. I suspect that they were already wary of the traditional dynamic and used the swimming pool party as a pretext to alter the relationships. One amusing observation regarding the removal of the sorry post from IDA. The violence was cabin damage, as indicated by the message I recently read from the moderator of the other sub. I am still unable to comprehend it. Guess the phone is being damaged. Incredibly absurd. The most recent update was made on March 19, 2024, 9 days after the previous post. The past few days have been quite intriguing. I assumed that the worst had already occurred. However, it was merely a fart in comparison to the events of this week. To ensure that this is comprehensible, it is necessary to provide a financial context. I have been responsible for their taxes for years, and I am well versed in their financial affairs, as my parents have never been particularly adept at saving money. They have minimal debt and their cabin is paid for. However, they did not accumulate a significant amount of retirement savings. They both receive Social Security benefits, and their father receives a substantial pension. They also have a small amount of savings, but there is no treasure trove in the cellar. I purchased their current vehicle as a retirement gift for them after they retired, in order to provide them with a luxurious vehicle to operate. This was the first vehicle they had not leased in approximately 2 decades. My sisters are of the opinion that the family is exceedingly wealthy and that our parents will be bequeathing everything to them. They have never been concerned with preserving money, as I do not require additional funds. It has been discovered that my oldest sister and her spouse, who have 3 children, have been living beyond their means for an extended period of time and are currently experiencing financial difficulties. They have exhausted their credit cards and are currently in arrears on their car leases, with one vehicle on the brink of repossession. In the past, he had boasted about earning X per year. However, it has since been discovered that this figure is approximately half that. She disclosed this information to her mother on Tuesday due to the necessity of obtaining a loan and the fact that for the past 3 years, she has been renting the mountain cabin once a month and retaining the proceeds. This amounts to a minimum of $4,000 for a week and over $2,000 for a weekend. Her parents were taken aback by this revelation. She has already had to terminate one group due to her inability to access the location. She is now concerned that they will lose everything. My parents are unable to provide them with a loan. My other sister was cognizant of her renting the cabin, but she has never disclosed any information. I suspect that she has also done the same thing, as I once visited the area to return an ATV that I had repaired. A family was present, and they claimed to be staying with my sister and her family. They also stated that they had gone to town for some reason. I believed that she had lent the cabin to some acquaintances at the time I let it go. I have, however, always been curious. I discovered all of this information from my parents, who are quite distressed about it. My mother is more agitated than my father, who is primarily irritated. I am aware that my father feels deceived, and I can only assume that he is humiliated that he is unable to assist his daughter out. He did, however, reiterate that the girls will not be using the vacation cabin in the near future as long as it is under his control. My parents informed me of the situation because they anticipated that my sisters would apply a full-court assault to me, and they were correct. On Thursday, my sisters returned to our parents' place, this time without their spouses. They remained outside until I returned cabin. I was compelled to make a decision between engaging in a public altercation with them, allowing them to enter without me, or allowing them to make a commotion. Consequently, I allowed them to enter. I received a disingenuous narrative from the elder sister, who was supported by the younger sister, regarding the necessity of allowing them to reclaim the mountain location immediately. Additionally, they stated that I have been a disloyal sibling and that I should take responsibility for paying for their children's college tuition, as this is a customary obligation for families. I permitted them to present their narrative and subsequently identified them in accordance with the information my family had provided. The situation deteriorated from that point on. Denial, weeping, cursing, screaming, you name it. I am certain that my ears are still reverberating 2 days later. I will not deny that I said some truly unkind and derogatory things to them. However, none of them were untrue. After approximately 1 hour, they ultimately departed. I then took a shower and retired to bed. My wife was cabined when I awoke, and her initial statement was that she had to block additional phone numbers because my sisters were overloading our phones with new ones. Yesterday, individuals contacted me via message to request that I make a call. I am confident that my sisters have given them a fabricated account of the events, but I am not yet prepared to revisit them. Typically, I am quite vivacious. However, this drama has rendered me quite worn out. I was able to drive up to the vacation main house and secure the entrance front gate sealed with just enough vitality today. I am the sole individual who possesses a key. I anticipate that this will suffice to guarantee that my siblings refrain from entering the premises. They would likely perish while endeavoring to travel 400 yards uphill to reach the parents' place. New information is available from this location. The third post, which was published on April 2nd, 2024, is 2.5 weeks after the previous update. Another update concerning the Cluster F, which is comprised of my extended family. Perhaps it is time, given the events of the past 2 weeks. After my sisters arrived at my parents' place, my parents informed me that they had completed the management of the mountain cabin. It sounded as though the sisters had been exerting pressure on them to permit them to reaccess the location. In essence, my parents transferred the responsibility for the cabin to me and informed me that it was my responsibility to manage it from this point forward. They had previously maintained a record of the users and the dates on which they would be using the equipment, as well as conducted routine maintenance, such as replacing worn-out components. In any case, they determined that they did not wish to be involved in the chaos. Although I do not condone their actions, I am disheartened by the fact that the establishment was intended to serve as a recreational and social space for them, and they continue to utilize it on a regular basis. Additionally, I have never been concerned with the fact that they permit my sisters and their families to use it, as I have always believed that it was my parents' decision, despite the fact that I technically own it. However, my family will now be unable to access the location without my involvement, which will alter the entire dynamic of the location. I have implemented numerous measures to guarantee the location. I have previously stated that I secured the front gate with the most excellent lock I could locate, as well as a heavy-duty chain. I also performed a complete reset of all the door keypads and generated new codes. Yesterday, security cameras were installed, which is truly quite impressive. The installer persuaded me to install a high-rise camera that provides a view of the valley. Despite the fact that the system exceeded my expectations in terms of cost, the assurance it provides is well worth the investment. Additionally, the installer installed notices on the cabin that indicated that the location was under video surveillance. I also installed a heavy-duty safeguard for the water shutoff, and discharge valve. I sincerely hope that I do not misplace the keys for it, as it will be a difficult task to retrieve them. I have only informed my wife that the water is shut off, and we are the only ones who possess the keys. Last week, I received separate calls at my office from both of the spouses, each of whom attempted to persuade me to allow them to continue using the main house in the same manner. The elder individual had accompanied a group of acquaintances to a male-oriented gathering, but they were unable to enter due to the front gate security. I am confident that he would have broken the lock if he had the ability, as he was extremely irritated and humiliated about being locked out. He oscillated between victimhood and pushiness throughout his conversation. He made a threat to remove the front gate from the earth at one point. He also acknowledged that they had been renting it out to a few acquaintances, that they required the money, that I was damaging their business, and that I should reimburse their guests. Was he correct? Disregard that. I should have recorded our conversation. However, I am unaware of how to do so from an office phone. The other bill sounded as though my sister was pressuring him to contact the company. When I informed him that he should not intend to utilize the facility again, he did not resist. In any event, I informed them that they were unable to utilize the location and advised them not to inquire again. I am currently contemplating the possibility of selling the vacation cabin. My wife and I will not utilize it sufficiently to rationalize its retention, and it is unlikely that there will be any forthcoming family gatherings. The response of my family members was essentially indifferent when I mentioned the possibility of selling it. I would be able to more than double my money by selling the cabin, which is situated at the end of a private road and comprises 3 lots with breathtaking views. However, I will likely delay the sale for a while, as it would be an emotive decision to do so at this time. At present, my sisters and I are not in communication, and I have no intention of establishing a contact. I am unaware of the status between them and my family, and I am not inclined to find out. However, we were fortunate enough to spend an evening with my parents last week, and we dined at a new Bistro 22 that was quite enjoyable. No one mentioned any of this. Mom has informed us that she is currently visiting her nieces and nephews at their residences. I apologize if this update is not filled with humor or excitement. However, that is a natural occurrence in life. Post 4 was updated on May 6, 2024, 1 month later. A few individuals have requested an update, therefore I am providing it. I employed an individual to supervise and administer the vacation cabin. He resides in the vicinity, provides for his family, and oversees a substantial number of properties, including vacation accommodations and weekend getaways such as ours. He conducts a physical inspection of the premises every week or two and has access to my camera feeds. I believe that he may have the most rewarding employment in the hills. He is compensated for driving around with his dog, walking around the properties, and relaxing on people's terraces whenever he feels like it. Additionally, he maintains a camera feed from a parent's place situated near the commencement of the private road, which captures still images whenever a vehicle passes by. The monthly fee is $450, and he will also perform routine maintenance and repairs on an as-needed basis. Additionally, he maintains cordial relationships with all of the sheriff's deputies. I obtained a significant amount of tranquility as a result of this. Additionally, he distributes photographs from his treks to all individuals on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. I am obligated to boast about my parents, as I acquired all of this information from them during supper tonight. My sisters were exerting pressure on them to request that I make the vacation main house available to all for Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving had become a cherished tradition for the family in that location. However, my wife and I have only attended once in the past 7 years. My father refrained from contacting me regarding the matter, as he was aware that I would decline. I believe they devised an excellent strategy when they announced that they were orchestrating the Thanksgiving gathering. They proposed that if everyone shared the cost in advance, they would rent an Airbnb in the hills. Otherwise, they would either host Thanksgiving at their parents' place or one of the sisters could do so. This resulted in a dispute between the sisters, as the middle sister was in favor of conducting the Airbnb, while the oldest sister lacked the necessary funds. It appears that Thanksgiving will be held at my parents' place, as the deadline to commit to the Airbnb has passed. We will not be present, regardless. My parents have requested that we refrain from selling the cabin at this time. They have determined that they would still like to use it on occasion, but only after my sisters have adjusted to the new normal. Naturally, they would appreciate it if everyone could reconvene there in the future. However, this is unlikely to occur. I would prefer to sell it and move on at this juncture. However, I am willing to maintain ownership if my parents occasionally employ it. Additionally, its value will increase in the future. My wife and I have maintained no correspondence with my sisters and their spouses. Both of our sisters have contacted me from new numbers, FU Google Voice, and have left messages requesting that I meet with them to discuss how the family mountain cabin can be used by all of us for the benefit of our parents. My wife was also contacted. I am relieved that I had already established the habit of declining calls from numbers that I did not recognize. I am genuinely uncertain as to whether they are delusional or if they believe they can manipulate me into granting them access once more. I am not particularly concerned. My parents have informed me that the oldest sister and her husband are terminating the leases on their SUV and large vehicle, as well as selling their jet skis and other items that they have never used. That will be extremely difficult for her, as she is quite the braggart and will not appreciate being seen in something that is older, smaller, and less expensive. As well, my identity is closely associated with his vehicle. He even has a minor tattoo of the truck company's insignia. This is, in all honesty, one of the numerous reasons why we never hanged out. Numerous individuals have recommended that I convert the vacation cabin into an Airbnb. I have no intention of doing so in the near future. I am aware that it would generate revenue, However, it would generate an extraordinary quantity of family conflict and would cause my parents to experience significant anxiety. They do not require that. It would also be a nuisance to remove the personal items that my parents have in the area, as they have no other place to store them. Additionally, the location would experience wear and tear. In addition, I anticipate that it would require some time for me, despite the fact that I would employ a manager to complete the task. I simply do not find it to be worthwhile. Post 5 was updated on June 17, 2024, which is 1.5 months later. Yesterday, I composed the majority of this piece. However, I elected to postpone it until I was less agitated. I am still agitated. Waiting did not alleviate my distress. I apologize if this is a bit discursive. The amount of information that has transpired has made it difficult to compose a coherent piece. Everything has gone awry. I genuinely did not anticipate that such an event would transpire. In summary, my brothers-in-law were apprehended after they broke into my vacation cabin. They have been charged with communicating threats, devastation of cabin, and breaking and entering, all of which are classified as Class 1 misdemeanors. I have declined to dismiss the allegations. I may do so if I am completely compensated for the harm they have inflicted. I guess they are out of prison by now, as they were still in custody as of Saturday evening. I believed that the situation had stabilized. It has been more than 6 weeks since I have seen or heard from my sisters. My parents spent a week at the parents' place and had a pleasant time. The cabin manager I employed, David, has been excellent. He has completed a few of the repairs I requested, and I have provided him with a list of additional tasks to complete. He typically sends his clients a photo or two of wildlife or a sunset on a weekly basis, which was somewhat enticing me to visit the area. My invoices were delivered to my vacation cabin on the Friday following Thanksgiving. The driveway front gate was damaged as a result of the use of an angle grinder to hack through the chain. They endeavored to gain entry through the front door, causing significant damage to the lock set in the door. They ultimately gained entry by means of a locked internal door and the utility floor door. Additionally, they entered the storage shed. However, the reason for this intrusion remains unclear. Upon exiting the building through the front entrance, they were greeted by David and sheriff's deputies. David receives notifications from the surveillance system when there is activity. He observed the situation and contacted the sheriff's department. The deputies did not believe the Bills' attempt to bluff their way out of it, according to David. Up there, it is a severe matter to break into a vacant cabin. Typically, meth addicts sift through the cabin and sell it. They were extremely alarmed when the Bills were apprehended, and they were threatening to physically assault me. It is not advisable to perform this action in the presence of law enforcement. David and the local sheriff's office attempted to contact my wife and me to determine our intentions. However, we were spending the day with her parents and had left our phones in the car to maintain a vacation-like atmosphere. Therefore, they processed all of the invoices, which is precisely what I would have requested. Bills contacted their spouses from prison, who of course were alarmed. They then contacted my parents, attempted to contact me, but they were barred. They then attempted to locate a lawyer in the area to arrange bond, which was a challenging task due to the rural location and the fact that it was a holiday weekend. My middle sister would have been obligated to cover the expenses of both of her spouses if they were to make bond, as my older sister has no cash and her credit cards are fully utilized. I'm aware that they were still in custody as of Saturday afternoon. We did not inspect our phones until late Friday when we were returning from visiting our in-laws. My mother, Father David, and the sheriff's department all made numerous calls and messages. Talk about ruining a wonderful day. I was in such a good mood until I glanced at my phone. My wife reviewed the texts and read the messages to me, and by the time we arrived cabin, I had a general understanding of the situation. I attempted to overcome my wrath by returning to active thinking mode, but my efforts were unsuccessful. I contacted David and received a detailed account of the events and the extent of the damage, which only served to exacerbate my wrath. I concluded my Friday by contacting the sheriff's department to inform them that there was no misunderstanding. The Bills had no right to be on my cabin, and I intended to file charges. No, I did not return their calls. Little to no sleep. I delayed contacting my parents until Saturday afternoon. My mother was particularly agitated by the entire situation. My sisters had coerced me into informing the authorities that the allegations were a misunderstanding and that I desired to have them dismissed. I categorically declined, stating that I would not do so until I had consulted with an attorney and had received complete payment for the full cost of rectifying the situation. I was understandably disheartened by the fact that my mother was sobbing profusely by the time we concluded our conversation. While my father advocated for a complete overhaul, he also maintained that they should compensate for the harm. I have yet to ascend to the cabin. There is nothing I can do, and I will likely experience a mental breakdown upon witnessing the devastation in person. The photographs are sufficiently unappealing. I am anticipating that I will be able to do so tomorrow or Wednesday. However, my occupation is not one that I can simply abandon for non-emergency reasons. I have contacted 2 attorney acquaintances to request their recommendations for the most suitable attorneys to pursue my sister's debts. I am uncertain of the specific actions I can take, but I am optimistic about obtaining restraining orders. I possess all of the messages they have sent me, which may be of assistance. I am seriously contemplating pursuing a legal action against them for the income they generated from renting the cabin. While I am not concerned with the financial gain, it will serve to further their misery. At this juncture, the covers are undoubtedly off. A few additional observations. 1. Bills was unaware that I had employed an individual to supervise the premises or that cameras were installed. My parents were aware of the situation, but they had refrained from informing them due to their belief that it would provide my sisters with an opportunity to create a scene. However, there are signs on the cabin that indicate that it is being monitored with cameras and that there are no encroachment signs. 2. At this juncture, my wife has reached her limit. I do not fault her. She has been exceedingly forbearing throughout this ordeal. However, she achieved her limit and was not hesitant to inform me of it. She informed me that I am responsible for addressing this matter. However, she believed that it was imperative that they all receive a harsh lesson. 3. Older Bill is unlikely to experience any consequences at his place of employment as a result of this, but Middle Bill has a security clearance, which suggests that he may. I am optimistic that this will serve as an incentive for Middle Bill to promptly reimburse himself for the damages. 4. David, the custodian, has an intriguing background. I was aware that he was acquainted with a few of the deputies and assumed that this was due to the fact that they were all residents. I was mistaken. He was a police officer in a major city for an extended period of time, was fatally shot while on duty, and subsequently resolved to resign and relocate to the location where his parents had retired. He is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of the experience. His companion is a certified service animal and is typically present. I am aware that law enforcement personnel have a propensity to form social circles. Therefore, it is reasonable to assume that this is how they became his closest friends. 5. I am unwilling to interact with these impolite individuals for the duration of my existence. I am aware that this is in direct opposition to my insatiable desire to make their lives as wretched as possible. Comment that is pertinent. Numerous individuals have suggested that I should have addressed this matter with greater severity from the outset. I have refrained from participating in it due to the fact that it would have caused my parents to experience stress, and I have a strong aversion to this type of drama. However, they are currently experiencing stress. My wife has largely declined to participate in any further discussions regarding this matter, stating that it is solely my responsibility. I anticipate that she will relent on that matter. However, I anticipate that she will refrain from participating in any further activities beyond listening to me vent. Edit. I am speculating as to the reason for the break-in, but I believe that they intended to repurpose the cabin for family vacations or to rent it out again. Deer season is in effect until the end of the year, according to David, the cabin manager. I am aware that the Bills have previously utilized it as a base camp for large group hunting trips. It accommodates a significant number of individuals, which could result in the accumulation of thousands of dollars from a single event with peers. Again, I am speculating, but this would elucidate the reason they broke into the storage shed. I purchased a 6-seater mule a few years ago, and they would likely be interested in using it. I am of the opinion that they did not intend to deface the cabin. It holds significant value for my father, and they both have a strong fondness for him. Update post 6, June 22, 2024, 5 days later. Saturday, June 22, 2024. I did not anticipate that I would be writing another post so soon, but a great deal has transpired in the past 2 days. In summary, I believe that this nonsense has been resolved. An envelope was delivered to my office by courier on Thursday afternoon. It contained a $5,000 cashier's check and a signed letter from both of my brothers-in-law. The letter contained what I believed to be a genuine apology. They also acknowledged the act of breaking in, acknowledged that it was wrong, stated that the $5,000 was to cover the damage, and stated that they would pay more if the cost exceeded that. Additionally, they stated that they would refrain from visiting the mountain cabin unless my wife and I specifically invited them. Additionally, they requested that I take all necessary steps to have the charges dismissed as soon as possible, as they were concerned that they could lose their jobs and that they would consent to a restraining order or any other measure that would facilitate this. There was additional information, all of which was conciliatory. However, this is the essence of the matter. Shock is an understatement. In contrast to their previous conduct, it was evidently a complete 180-degree turn. I had already scheduled an appointment with an attorney to discuss the possibility of suing my creditors for the damage and to attempt to obtain a restraining order. I contacted him and informed him of the information I had received. He consented to meet with me at the end of the day rather than next week. I was advised not to deposit the check. We convened for approximately 2 hours. He ended up recommending the wife and I do a settlement and mutual release agreement with all 4 of them, sisters and creditors. He said if we went after them via a lawsuit that we'd almost certainly win, but that it could take 2 years or more. There would be substantial upfront legal expenses and that we might never see any money. He also said we could retain the $5,000 free and clear even if we didn't let them off the hook. He's drawing up the agreement. It won't be ready until Monday. The agreement will include what's essentially the civil equivalent of a restraining order. I'd already asked my cabin manager to work up a bid to get the damage repaired. I called him after the meeting and asked that he get me as close an estimate as possible ASAP. Got that Friday. He believes it will take around $4,000 to repair everything. Most of that is for the front entrance. My attorney contacted each of the legislation on Friday, informing them of our proposal and advising them to retain their own attorneys. They both consented to it. The middle bill informed him that they could only afford to pay for the damages or a lawyer, but not both. They concluded that a lawyer would not be of any assistance as they had no defense for their actions. His primary apprehension was whether the charges could be dismissed. As far as I can determine, they are prepared to sign anything in order to resolve this matter. On Friday, my attorney also contacted the district attorney's office to inquire about the possibility of dismissing the charges. He obtained the prosecutor's name and left a message, but he has not yet communicated with them. He is under the impression that the allegations will be dismissed due to the fact that the expenses are being paid and there are no priors. However, he is not a criminal counsel. Additionally, I was advised that I should be prepared to travel to the location on Monday or Tuesday and inform the prosecutor in person that I wish to have all charges dismissed. He has also recommended that I maintain a distance from my sisters and creditors, particularly for the next 6 months. He also stressed the importance of adhering to the provisions of the agreement in all future interactions with them. I am speculating that the bill's change of heart is a result of their realization of the potential financial consequences, including legal fees and sanctions. Additionally, it is possible that they could be in prison for up to 120 days, although this is exceedingly unlikely. As previously mentioned, one of them has a security clearance for his occupation that could be jeopardized. Therefore, this is their last-ditch attempt to maintain their standard of living. This is not an ideal solution to the situation. However, it will enable me to progress beyond the legal and financial aspects of the dung show that I have been involved in for the past few months. I am uncertain that I will ever establish a civil relationship with any of them again, and that is entirely acceptable. At this juncture, my primary objective is to conclude this matter, resume my existence, and never communicate with any of the individuals involved again. I am drained as a result of this. The wife shares a similar sentiment. It may seem like a minor matter, but receiving the written contrition was a significant moment for me. I was not anticipating that ever, but it appears that it is of considerable importance to me. At this time, the money does not appear to be of significant importance. However, I will certainly accept it. Additionally, I am confident that the funds were generated by my middle sister and her spouse. The credit union of the company for which he works issued the cashier's check. I intend to provide one additional update, which will likely consist of a minor revision to this document after the necessary paperwork has been signed. I apologize for my excessive attention to detail. The feedback has been extremely beneficial, and the act of writing these posts has helped me clarify my mind. I am genuinely grateful for the comments, insights, and support of all individuals. I sincerely pray that none of you will ever be required to endure this type of folly. Comment that is pertinent. I must admit that upon my arrival cabin on Thursday evening, I shed tears of relief as I believed that this ordeal might be concluded. I will refrain from engaging in discussions regarding the settlement with my family until it has been signed by all parties. My sisters have the option to pay the expenses, but I am not. It is a matter between us. Final update, June 27, 2024, 5 days later. I met with my counsel on Tuesday morning to review the agreement. He made a few minor adjustments and forwarded it to my sisters and brothers-in-law. The agreement stipulated that they would be responsible for paying my attorney's fee, which was approximately $3,000. They were dissatisfied with this and attempted to negotiate their way out of it. However, he informed them that they would either accept the agreement as is or there would be no deal at all, and we would proceed with suing them for the money they received from renting the cabin, wear and tear, repair costs from the break-in, emotional distress, lost income from having to deal with the situation, attorney fees, and any other damages that could be incurred. Additionally, he informed them that I would exert significant pressure on the district attorney's office to pursue each charge. In summary, they arrived and executed their signatures. I was not present. I have been informed that the atmosphere was quite tense, and the middle bill appeared to have assumed control. At one point, he instructed both of my sisters to cease their conversation, or he would depart from the situation, forming his own agreement with us and allowing the others to perish. They submitted an additional cashier's check for $2,500, asserting that this was their sole asset. It is sufficiently near that we will accept it as the final payment. The attorney also informed me that the individuals were extremely frigid and unkind to one another. However, they were able to maintain their composure long enough to sign and depart without causing a significant disturbance. Yesterday, I arrived at the mountain cabin early to assess the damage and consult with the district attorney's office. The damage was so absurd that it caused my blood to boil. My anger was so intense that I was prepared to absorb the expensive repairs and take any measure necessary to undermine their lives. Tried to walk it off, but it was an abject failure. Ultimately, I contacted a close friend who was empathetic enough to listen to me for more than an hour as I vented and rant. Eventually, he inspired me to return to the larger perspective of putting this incident behind me and moving forward with my life. In all honesty, I am still uncertain if that is the course of action I wish to pursue. However, I was able to relax enough to consume sustenance, which made me feel considerably more at ease. I visited the prosecutor's office following lunch. I was required to wait for a while as I had not scheduled an appointment. However, I was able to meet with the assistant district attorney who is responsible for the case. In summary, they are willing to dismiss all charges except for trespassing, which will be classified as a Class 2 misdemeanor in this instance, as I am not interested in prosecuting, and the bills have already been paid for the damages. The invoices will be required to enter a plea of guilty and pay the sanction that the magistrate determines. Additionally, I have been informed that they would face severe consequences if they contest the encroachment allegation or even dare to fart in public on that elevation. It was advantageous that the bills did not resist arrest. Otherwise, none of the offenses would have been dismissed. I also visited the local sheriff's office to express my gratitude for their prompt arrival and assistance. I intended to express my gratitude to the deputies in person. However, I was only able to converse with the dispatcher, and I attempted to arrange a meeting with David, the cabin manager, but I was unsuccessful in contacting him. The agreement contains a no-contact clause, which is worth noting. In essence, the individual who arrived last must depart promptly if any of them arrive at the location where my wife or I are, or the other way around. I will not communicate with you except through attorneys or other mutually agreed upon third parties. They are entitled to retain any profits they generate from renting the mountain cabin, which is my primary concession, unless I incur tax penalties that they will be accountable for. Additionally, we mutually absolve each other of all other obligations that have accrued up to the present. Although there are additional aspects to consider, these are the most significant. The agreement will be signed by my wife and me later today. Subsequently, I am incapable of discussing the majority of this matter. However, I am capable of discussing it in lieu of it. I believe that this concludes my definitive update on the matter. However, I will endeavor to address any inquiries that may arise. As I have previously stated, the act of posting about this matter and reading the thoughts and responses of others has been extremely beneficial. It is likely that this has been the determining factor in my ability to manage the situation in a relatively healthy manner. I am grateful for your continued support. Comments that are pertinent. I found it difficult to refrain from being vindictive. However, I am relieved that I refrained from doing so at this time. I will likely regret my decision if they continue to cause additional complications in the future. However, this will not occur if they adhere to the agreement. Similarly to your assertion, the family dynamics are largely dysfunctional. I have only informed my parents that we are currently in the process of resolving the matter, and nothing more. Although they may or may not be satisfied with the direction of the situation, I was compelled to act in the best interest of my wife and me. I am assuming that my sisters have provided them with a highly skewed account. However, that is yet another excrement that I will have to navigate. In reality, the agreement serves as a formalization of the circumstances that have prevailed over the past few months. I am aware that it is not in accordance with my parents' expectations. However, I am content with the outcome. Have your sisters ever exhibited this degree of entitlement in the past? Not really. In any case, not toward me. We used to be all right. We were never particularly close, but we were not adversaries. In retrospect, they began to harbor animosity toward me when I acquired a penthouse at the age of 25. At that time, neither of them had acquired a parent's place. However, they had encountered their future spouses. They certainly did not appreciate the fact that someone else was able to secure a space before them. When I met my wife, the situation deteriorated. They were particularly dissatisfied with her status as a member of an affluent family, particularly in light of the fact that I was doing quite well at the time, accused me of being elitist and other such things. Upon our marriage, I relocated to my wife's Emma's condo, which was conveniently located near her place of employment. Subsequently, I liquidated my apartment. Despite the fact that our wedding was extravagant yet reasonably priced, the sisters were undoubtedly envy. Subsequently, they and their spouses became exceedingly spiteful, and we began to reduce our interaction with them. I was able to purchase the vacation cabin for my parents by being parsimonious, not having a main house payment, and earning a profit from the sale of the loft. My parents were content with concealing the fact that I possessed it, as they were aware that my sisters would be displeased and claim that I was utilizing my wife's funds. I did not, as the majority of our finances are kept distinct. However, the absence of a main house payment was certainly beneficial. I genuinely believe that we were doing well in the general sense before this nonsense began. I cannot feign that I appreciate spending more than half a day in their company, as our daily routines are vastly different. However, I did not believe that they harbored animosity toward me. I was aware that both sisters had become quite pampered and entitled. However, it was not a matter of concern for me. I did not have any significant disagreements with my brothers, but we shared almost no common interests. I suppose this is a convoluted way of expressing that I was unaware that they were all such jerks. One final reflection. At this juncture, my modest fantasy is that I never receive another correspondence from them.